Hey guys, in this video we are going to talk more about what birds like to eat, but first we are going to learn about my favorite bird, which is the American woodcock. And then we're going to talk more about why birds have certain shaped beaks and what birds like to eat in the wintertime. So you may be wondering, why is the American woodcock Miss Kayla's favorite bird? Well, I've got 3 pretty good reasons. First, just look at that little woodcock chick. Isn't he adorable? Woodcocks raise 1 brood a year, which usually consists of 3 or 4 chicks. The second reason I love woodcocks is because of their call. It's kind of a funny sound. Here's what it sounds like. Not really a sound I'd expect from a bird. And finally, I love how they dance. Now you may be wondering, why do they dance like that? Any ideas? It actually has to do with what they like to eat. They love to eat earthworms. So when they rock their body back and forth and kind of look like they're dancing, they're actually vibrating the earth to make the earthworms move. They also do a courtship dance, but we're not going to get into that right now. Woodcocks can be found where there is nice moist soil, usually near rivers, streams, lakes, or ponds. Basically anywhere they can find lots of earthworms to eat. They use their super long beak to reach down into the mud and pull out earthworms. That may not sound like the best meal for you, but for a woodcock, that's the best. But what about in the winter? Can woodcocks find worms in the wintertime? The answer is no. So, woodcocks have to migrate. They fly south where it's nice and warm and they can find as many worms as they want to eat. There are lots of birds like woodcocks that can't find food here in the wintertime, but some birds can and they stick around. This includes birds like bald eagles. A lot of times in the winter you'll see them sitting in trees by a river because if there's openings in the water, they can catch fish. They will also hunt other small animals, but really they love to eat fish. You may also see owls in the wintertime. Owls love to eat mice, and they use their great hearing and flying skills to catch the mice to eat. Eagles, hawks, and owls all have a predator beak, so they depend on eating meat in the wintertime. Not all birds that stick around are going to eat meat, though. Most of them are going to eat seeds and nuts and fruit. And most likely you'll see them at a bird feeder. They rely on humans to feed them. Most birds that you'll see visiting a bird feeder will have a cracker beak, so they can easily crack open those seeds and eat what's on the inside. These birds include chickadees, nuthatches, cardinals, woodpeckers, juncos, cedar waxwings, sparrows, purple finches, and the list could go on. Since a lot of winter birds do rely on humans to feed them, we are going to learn how to make your own bird feeder at home. We are going to make cookie cutter bird feeders. Here is what you'll need to make your cookie cutter bird feeders. You are going to need a hot plate or a stove, whatever you have available to you. You will need a pan enough to hold some boiling water, a cookie sheet, parchment paper, a measuring cup, and then a liquid measuring cup, 2 packs of unflavored gelatin, a spatula, Cookie cutters, they can be any shape you want. I happen to have Christmas cookie cutters. Cut up straw to make holes when you make your cookie cutter bird feeders. Some twine and some scissors to hang up your bird feeders when you're done. And the most important thing, bird seed. Now we're gonna learn how to make the cookie cutter bird feeders, but the first thing I do wanna say is kids, please do this with an adult. You're going to be using a stove and there's going to be boiling water, and we just wanna make sure you're as safe as possible. So the first thing that you want to do is turn on your stove or your hot plate. So I know I'm gonna be boiling water, so I'm gonna turn it on high. I'm gonna set my pan on top. And I am going to measure out water. So you will need about 2/3 cup water for this activity. You can use water from the faucet, but I have a bottle of water here, so I'm gonna measure that out. All right, I've got my 2/3 cup water in there, so now I'm going to wait until it starts boiling. Okay, so my water is starting to boil. You can see the bubbles in there. So I am going to add my 2 packets of gelatin. Then you want to take your spatula and stir in the gelatin until it is completely dissolved. You don't want to see any of it left. Now you do want to make sure you stir right away, otherwise you're going to get chunks like I have, but that's okay. You just want to make sure most of the powder is dissolved into the water. I'm going to stir a little bit longer. Okay, I think that's about as good as it's going to get. So what I'm going to do now is, what you can do is set your pot on another burner, but I have a towel here and I am just going to put the towel down so the table doesn't get super hot, and I am going to move my pot right over there. And then you want to carefully turn your stove or your hot plate off. And I'm going to move that out of the way. Okay, we've got our gelatin here. So now what we need to do is add our bird seed. So we're gonna add about maybe 2 cups of bird seed to this gelatin. I'm gonna start out with 1 cup. And you want to stir that together and make sure all the bird seed gets coated. Do you guys see how there's still a little bit of liquid in there? So we're gonna add some more bird seed until all of the liquid is absorbed. I'll just do a little bit at a time. All right, I'd say most of the liquid is absorbed in there. So now we're going to move on to forming our cookie cutter bird feeders. Okay, so I've got my cookie sheet here and I am going to put some parchment paper down to help protect that. And the parchment paper makes it easier to pick up your bird feeders when they're dry. And then I'm going to grab a couple cookie cutters and set those on top. Okay, and then the next step is to just take your bird seed and gelatin mixture and put it down into the cookie cutters. So I'm just going to spoon some in there. You can use your spoon or a spatula to help press it down into the little corners. And this will make a bit of a mess, but that's okay. Once you have the bird seed in there, it cools off pretty quickly, so then you can use your hands and kind of press it down in there. Okay, once you have them filled, then we are going to add the little pieces of straw. This is going to allow you to be able to hang up your bird feeder after it's dry. So basically all you're gonna do is take a piece of straw and you're gonna stick it down through so that there's a hole after it dries. So I'm going to add a straw to each of my cookie cutter shapes. And then I'm just gonna kind of press some bird seed around it again. Make sure there's some covering it. Okay, and once you have your straw in there, then we're just going to let these dry. Okay, so I let my cookie cutter bird feeders dry overnight. You don't want them to feel wet at all. You want to make sure they're nice and dry. So now I'm going to try to pop these out of the cookie cutters. It's my first time doing this, so we'll see how this goes. Okay, so I've got my 4 little cookie cutter bird feeders. I've got a little deer here and a bell, and I've got a star and a tree. So now the next step is to cut some twine and string them through so that you can hang them up. Okay, I have the string on my bird feeders. Here's 2 of them. So they are ready to go hang up outside. Hopefully you guys have learned to love the woodcock just as much as I do, and I hope you see some birds visiting your cookie cutter bird feeders. See you next time.